Hello, I'm Scott Clover, and you're listening to the Intuitive Energy Podcast. This podcast series is about intuition, healing, and creating new energetic patterns that benefit you in your daily life. In my private practice, I help people heal from a diverse range of issues, including self-acceptance, trauma release, managing anxiety, emboldening self-worth, and creative expression. In this episode, we talk about how to listen to your body and why it's important, how to protect yourself before you go out to a family gathering, and why you may attract the same type of person over and over until you learn how to favor yourself and your own energies. Enjoy.
Carl Munson here, talking once again to Scott Clover, the intuitive energy healer in New York. I'm in Portugal, and we've done 4 interviews so far. So I'll do a quick recap. We started off with intuition is our evolution. We then talked about not new agey or spiritual. Our 3rd episode was check inside and find your tribe. And most recently, we talked about joy, judgment, and the power of words. And these are available on a growing number of podcast platforms for your listening pleasure. So, Scott, how are you?
Yeah, I'm well. Nice to talk to you.
Excellent. I'm looking through some of the benefits from working with you. And it's quite a diverse list of things, if I could just read through them. Trauma and PTSD, unblocking past issues, interpersonal and family dynamics, energetic consulting for creatives, and we have goal achievement and intentions, intuitive emergence, sexual awareness and identification, somatic grief release, and self-acceptance. Now that is a very diverse range of benefits or outcomes. So I'm wondering, what's the thing that unites them? What is it you do that can unite such a diverse range of outcomes?
So you're talking about energy medicine at this point, and energy medicine can comprise of many different things. How I channel my intuition to help people is to show them where their blocks are, how their blocks got there. If you review that list, I think one of the common threads, as you asked, is where people hamper themselves, where they've been hampered by others, and how does that spiral into their adult life, for example. So the theme between all those things is emotional blocks that become physical barriers, or creative blocks because of something that happened in childhood, like bullying, or just a non-supportive group or family that didn't support your artistry or your creativity, or tried to stifle it for many different reasons. A lot of people come to me with more than one of those issues, but certainly not all of them, right? But the link is that we all are hindered as we grow up, whether we choose to admit it or not, and we think we're great, we are great. But if you look back in your past, other people's impressions of you or impressions that you imposed upon yourself have a confining take on certain aspects of how you want to interrelate to the world around you.
So that saying, how you do one thing is how you do everything, I suppose, is a reflection of this original difficulty or challenge you might have had in your life. What you seem to be saying is that original impulse, difficulty, challenge, blockage, or whatever it is, does manifest itself in multiple ways. So on one level, it could be seen as a trauma issue. But then on the other hand, it might be because you can't get stuff done and you can't achieve your goals or realize your intentions in life. But they've got the same root cause.
Yeah, for example, say you lost a parent as a child. Well, that's a trauma. So the body has to contend with that trauma for every day for the rest of your life. But at the same time, you're going to hold grief in your body because you're grieving the fact that you no longer have that parent to interact with. So grief and trauma combined can sort of get stuck. One sort of is the placeholder for the other, and then they get stuck together, and they don't leave unless they're interacted with. And then if they're interacted with on a certain wavelength or vibration or understanding of why they're there, then through these new technologies that we talk about, you can release them. And the hold that they've had on you, whether it's subtle or a large impact, can be reduced.
I love how you're referring to it as new technologies. Could you say a bit more about that? Because I suppose a lot of people would put it in the same department as healing and therapy. Those traditionally haven't been seen as technologies, have they? Why do you use the word technology?
Well, because some of the ways that people in my industry are going about trauma release can be recreated. So
Okay.
you don't need just someone like me who has an intuition about it if you know what your trauma is. But the difference in my case is if you don't know what your trauma is, or you fool yourself into thinking it's something recent, you're able to look at it differently and understand that it had a root cause many, many years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So talking about a present condition is just the aftermath of the issue. So you just keep talking about the aftermath of the issue. You're not getting to the root cause of it. So that's where I think it's interesting to come to someone from an intuitive side is, oh, maybe this person can help me unlock the real reason, because that real reason is the keyhole, and the key turning is understanding what it is.
Now, you used the term earlier on, and I'm fascinated by this, that people might kid themselves. I don't know if that was the exact phrase that you used, but it was the gist of it was that we might kid ourselves that these things haven't gone on in our lives before. How do we check for that? Because some people will be, I was going to say suggestible, that's not the right word, but open, I suppose. Some people will be open, won't they? And they might have heard a podcast like this and say, okay, yeah, I get it. I get what he's talking about. Yeah, I can see that's what I'm doing. And then for the rest of the folks who might be hiding from it, kidding themselves, denying it, whatever term you would use, how might that denial show up in their lives? So what if they deny it? Is that going to be a problem?
Well, denying an issue is going to keep it at bay from healing. It's going to keep it apart from the healing aspects. So as long as it keeps fooling you or placating you, then you're going to be stuck in the same rut. I'm a fan of saying observation is 55% of healing in the work that I do. If you can observe the existing reality and validate it and say, oh, this is what's really happening, not what I wish would be happening, and I'm struggling to not accept what isn't happening. People hope that things are different. That's not changing them.
Yes, okay. Yeah. It's the world of politics, isn't it? And hoping and change and hoping and change and hoping and change. And we can see that that's quite a cycle in its own dysfunctional way. And yeah, on a personal level, of course, just hoping for change is not going to really change anything.
Right. And ignoring the reality of what is the reason behind it, or not seeing the reason behind it, will certainly keep it there. And so you were talking about the issue of reoccurring, and it is reoccurring. If you have, say, a narcissistic parent, then you might look at, as you leave the house at 17, 18, what have the relationships been like after that? Who have the people you've been drawn to in your life after that? And what impact does that have? And how much self-worth do you feel when you interact with those people? For
sure. And that's a real jaw dropper, isn't it? If you suddenly make that connection that you thought you were done with it when you left home, and then that pattern repeats. That's a pretty good example and a very good answer.
Yeah, the pattern repeats in your bosses. That pattern repeats in the people that you date. That pattern might repeat in the neighbors that you're aligned with or that you're friendly with. And then all of a sudden you realize, oh my God, I'm being used, or I'm being used to put this person on a pedestal, just like I had to with my father or my mother growing up.
Yeah, and on the one hand, what a horrible realization. But then on the other hand, fantastic that the relief is available and that it needn't persist and continue for the rest of their lives.
Right, because if that under the current was vexing you, if that in your subconscious was really vexing you, but you couldn't put your finger on what was vexing you, and it happens in most of your interactions or the people that you become close with, then now is a chance to point at it and say, nope, I'm going to stop that pattern. I'm going to look for more healthy friends.
Yes.
I'm going to look for someone who is more empathic like I am, as opposed to more narcissistic.
And interestingly, it's a matter of timing here. We are in the run-up to the Christmas festivities, a time of great familial gathering and pushing of buttons, if you see what I mean. And what could people be looking out for here? And how, I mean, on the one hand, they would get to see these patterns, wouldn't they? It's a really good laboratory or crucible to see what goes on in family dynamics and find out maybe what happened in your childhood and what you carry around in your life. But what, on a positive note, what would you say to people going into that situation about looking after themselves in that situation as well?
I would say if you're curious about this kind of work and you want to understand yourself more, understand how the people around you here in the U.S. Thanksgiving and then Christmas, or as you said, the Christmas festivities or Hanukkah festivities around the world, understand in advance. Maybe you should learn to protect yourself. So sit around one day by yourself in a quiet room and think of the people that you're going to interact with that might vex you. And notice how your body is affected by that. If Uncle Sam is going to be there and then your chest tightens up, then you know that you feel something in advance. So how would you protect yourself against Uncle Sam's energy? If you know just thinking about him causes your chest to tighten up. Or if Aunt Linda makes your stomach just churn, just thinking about being in the same room with her. Then defend yourself against that. Create a defense knowing in advance that these people are going to intimidate you energetically or cause you to cower or maybe not speak your mind the way you would amongst your peer group. Do some research in advance with your own body and say, how are these people affecting my body? If Uncle George comes in and your heart just leaps because he was nice to you growing up and sort of understood that you were the black sheep of the family, or, he just seemed to be the one you related to, then spend more time with Uncle George. If he makes your heart open up and feel warm, and steer clear of your cousin or somebody else that is just going to be challenging.
I bet just us talking about this has got people going on that. And
yeah, they're probably making a list. They're probably making a list and going, oh, my ass just tightened, or my, my fist just clenched, or how do these people make me interact with myself?
Yeah, because of course the other option is not to go, isn't it, and to sort of free yourself of that. And then another option altogether is to give yourself a sort of pre-Thanksgiving, pre-Christmas tree, and get it looked at, alter the energetic pattern, see somebody like you, and go and so you could sit in a room on your own, and that sounds like a great idea. But you could also take that work where you're blocked with that and work with somebody and get around that, and then see if you can have an entirely different Thanksgiving or Christmas.
Oh, sure. Yeah, exactly. If you know what you're heading into, and then you have understanding of ways to protect yourself, which is what I do with my clients, is understanding where their body is affected, where's their weak link, and then we bolster that area, and then we protect it energetically through visualizations, through imagery, through, as I said, invoking the childhood imagination. You can create these buffers, these safety buffers, and make them permeable so you don't seem like a standoffish prick, right? So you want to make it somewhat permeable so you don't show up like a robot.
Yes.
But at the same time, you want to really know that you're defending your sensibilities, or you're not going to get drawn into an argument about a differing political viewpoint, or someone who might be a bigot, or one family member who might be, not as woke as the rest of the family.
Isn't that a beautiful picture we've created of the season of goodwill and good cheer?
It happens in every household.
Right.
Every household. And Jim Carrey has a quote, and I don't know it by heart. I'm paraphrasing here. But he says that the black sheep of the family, or the one who was separated from the family, is the one who starts to see the world differently.
Yes. Yeah, I saw that recently. Yeah.
Yeah. So that would be your first chakra, your tribe, restructuring itself.
All right. And you make a very interesting point there, because it's not just about your relationships with those people and how that makes you feel, but it's how you come across as well, isn't it? Like you said, if you don't want to seem like a standoffish so-and-so, the work you do with people potentially eases relationships all round, doesn't it? So that you can be in that situation with ease, and you can appear and show up in the world entirely differently.
Right, because agitation begets agitation.
Yeah.
If you know that a certain person is going to agitate you, and you take steps in advance to placate or alleviate that agitation, then it's not in the next time you have a discourse. then it's not there the next time you have an interaction. So then it's not set off to the next person who feels agitatable or agitated, because they have a sixth sense too. You know how people sort of feel or what their vibe is. And if you are agitated or triggered by someone, and then you take that away, then you're not putting it into the universe for it to build off of.
Amazing. That
So
was such
self-care is group care.
Yes.
You want to think of it that way.
And it's a contribution and gift to your family, isn't it? And ancestry, really.
Oh, healing is so important to ripple out through a family. If you do separate from the tribe and heal a family wound, then that healing will ripple back through the timelines and back through the ancestors and back and into the younger generations.
This is the beautiful. I love that. And this is the black sheep becomes the warrior sheep, echoing through eternity.
Yeah, and I would say it becomes more of a wolf. The black sheep becomes more of a wolf. Yeah. Right? They go off, they find their own tribe, and that tribe is very important to them, and it creates a sense of power because they feed off each other.
Fantastic.
And they don't let the weak ones down.
You know, people will be thinking, okay, well, I need to send mum or dad along to see Scott. It doesn't really work like that, does it? You need to do the work on yourself, right?
Well, it can, as I said, if they're open to it. If they've done energy work before, or they have a meditation practice or things like that. But if you're trying something like this for the first time, you really should be present for it and have the belief and the faith in yourself that you can connect with your own body energies in a safe environment to create healing.
Okay.
So you want to bring that to the table because it just makes it that much more effective.
Sure. Brilliant. All right. Something else. This always happens when we talk, but you set off another line of inquiry, really, which is about all of these bodily reactions that we talked about. You know, the chest tightening, the stomach churning, the ass clenching. There was another one, but you get the picture about how the body is really a barometer, and how it is. You know, we could be so much more in touch with that as a useful thing to us, but actually it's become a nuisance, isn't it? These pain signals are like our pain. They're not useful feedback. What's happened to human beings that's the situation now, that we're not receiving that as useful information. It is received as pain.
Well, because society sort of has been structured these last 100 years to pull us away from our bodies, to pull us away from nature, to pull us away from knowing that we have the ability to change our own bodies. Every advertisement is about taking a pill to make you feel different.
Yeah.
But every medication you take, the bar swings back. There's another effect to the medication that you're taking. And one of those effects on an energetic level is it separates you from your body.
Yes.
We have a huge opiate addiction crisis here in the United States, and it's running rampant through different parts of the world. And what those do is just completely separates you from your body. And then you distance yourself from the potential of healing. So it's a placation device. Well, we do that in microcosm without medicating ourselves by just disconnecting from our bodies. Yes. Somewhere down the line, somewhere along the way, it was explained to us as a society if we pull away from it, then ignore it, then we can continue on. And it's sort of like the expression dragging your chains. So if you have pain in your body and you pull yourself away from that pain, then you're distancing yourself from the chi that's there. And that chi will stagnate. But it's zeroing in on the part of the body that is requesting the attention. If it's requesting the attention, give it the attention.
Yes.
If you ignore it, then it's going to sort of pout energetically.
Yes, energetic pouting. I love that. But that's what we do. That's what the culture is, isn't it? Pain is bad. So let's do everything we can to avoid the pain. And, you know, and taking an opiate would be one solution to that, or you know, clearly not a very sustainable one, but at least a relief from the pain. And this is a massive, I mean, you know, the implications of this are huge, aren't they? The fact that we are not necessarily receiving pain as useful information. It's become, we ignore it until it becomes a terrible pain, and then we want to do something really drastic to hide the pain. Do you see a change in how we might do that for human beings?
Well, yeah, as I said, embodiment.
Right. Okay. Okay.
Embodiment, feeling that your body tells a story and listening to that story and then talking back to it, treating it as if you're a couple or you're a team, not separate. Our
Oh, wow.
brains and our bodies are all on the same team, but we didn't get that memo, or that memo was thrown away.
Well, this is a theme for me at the moment. You know, the whole thing about being kind to ourselves. It's huge, isn't it? Because even people who probably think they're being quite kind to themselves probably aren't being, because of all these programs running and stuff in the past. And this would be a great kindness, wouldn't it, to go into partnership and teamwork with your
Yeah, if
body.
you've got a sore knee and you don't know why, rub your hands together and place it on your knee and have a talk with it.
Wow.
See what it says to you. Does it talk back? You know, put your right hand on your left elbow if your left elbow hurts, and communicate with it. Sit down with it and see what it's trying to tell you. And you might get some answers that you weren't listening for before.
Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, well, I think that concludes things for this podcast. I mean, that is an incredible list of things, and you've really got to the bottom of it, literally. You know, they connected the dots, I suppose, which is what goes on for people that can manifest itself in all sorts of ways. The other thing, I mean, is you know, just finally, do you help people amplify and perfect the communication system you've just talked about? So that might sound a bit weird to somebody, mightn't it? If your knee hurts, rub your hands together and talk to your knee. Is that something you facilitate and train in as well? Do you offer a service of helping people become greater communicators with their bodies? Because that's an incredible gift and skill people can develop.
Oh, it's an amazing skill if you can develop it. And yes, yes, I do help people communicate better, not just with their bodies, but how their bodies then interact with the outside world. So there's many levels or steps of communication between you, yourself, your body, how your body interacts to other people's energies as opposed to your brain. Meaning people get taken advantage of or lied to all the time. And if they listen to their bodies more, maybe their bodies would say, oh, maybe this person isn't telling me the truth, but I want to believe in them. And I want to believe that what they're telling me is true. So I'm going to ignore the fact that my body's really telling me you should step away from this and look at it longer, or just step away completely. How many times do we override our internal intuition because of something we were told? Yeah. And only to find out after the fact, oh, shoot, if I would have listened to that inner voice, this situation wouldn't have been here, or I wouldn't have trusted the wrong person, or I wouldn't have gone down the wrong street. So communicating with yourself and your body can have wonderful effects on your daily life as well. Not just your interpersonal relationships, but how you interact with your apartment and your neighborhood and your car.
And do you see that, just finally, as a matter of training and embodied experience then? Because a lot of people would see the sense in that, but then they're kind of terrified to do it, aren't they? To trust at that sort of level. How do you make the change? And how do you gain trust in your own intuitive ability like that on a daily basis?
I would say incrementally.
Okay. Take it easy. Take it
incrementally, gracefully, as my mentor, Dr. Michael Pacucci, would always frustratingly tell me, slow is fast.
Okay. Slow
is fast. And every time I say it, I hear him in the back of my mind saying it, and me getting frustrated that it can't be faster. And then looking back months later and realizing, oh, I took it at that pace, and now I'm where I need to be, as opposed to trying to rush it and having it go off the rails or sever itself, or just not be able to complete its journey because I went too fast. So definitely in intuitive amplitude, be graceful, be courteous to yourself, be generous with your time and your body. Meaning, if you have a bathtub, take an Epsom salt bath, light a candle, be more in touch with this sack of skin and water that carries around your intuition. That's a great way to start unfurling some of these contractions or barriers that we put up, which is back to the main point, is what is the common theme in that list that you said? And it's, where do we express ourselves and where do we limit ourselves? And fortunately, I'm graced with an ability to see in people's energy fields where those situations or energy blockages lie, and I hopefully explain them to them in a way that releases it for a more consistent flow of energy, if you will. Because then consistency really begets stability.
Fantastic. Okay, scottclover.com is where you need to go if you want to book an appointment with Scott. And I think that the takeaway there, at the very least, start with, as the old song goes, try a little tenderness, especially on yourself.
Definitely. Yep. And be insightful. Allow yourself to listen to your body and communicate with it.
Scott, thank you very much. Thanks, you very Carl. Much indeed. Cheers.
Cheers, bye. You've been listening to the Intuitive Energy Podcast with me, Scott Clover. Thanks to Carl Munson for the great discussion and to Corey Tutt for the music you're listening to. In my private practice, I encourage people to heal what holds you back and feel better in your body. If you need more help with that process, I'm available for healing sessions by phone internationally. Visit scottclover.com for more information. Be well, and thanks for listening. This podcast is for educational and informational purposes only, and solely as a self-help tool for your own use. I'm not providing medical, psychological, or nutrition therapy advice. You should not use this information to diagnose or treat any health problems or illnesses without consulting your own medical practitioner. Always seek the advice of your own medical practitioner and/or mental health provider about your specific health situation. For my full disclaimer, please go to scottclover.com/disclaimer.